Welcome to another episode of Motivating Monday. I'm Justus, and in today's episode, I'll be sharing on a miracle by Jesus, specifically on the Gadarene Demoniac. Taken from Mark, chapter 5, verses 1 to 20. I'll just briefly run through the stories, or rather the miracle. So basically, Jesus comes to the country of Gadarenes, and he meets this man from the tombs with an unclean spirit in him that made him mad, such that no one could bind him in chains, and every attempt to contain him with shackles and chains were always broken. And he made his dwelling in mountains and tombs, crying out and cutting himself. And Jesus tells the unclean spirit in him to get out of him. But the man falls at his feet, worshipping him, questioning what is Jesus going to do with him, and begs Jesus not to torment him. Jesus asks for his name, and the unclean spirits answer that they are called legion because they were many spirits in one. And they see a herd of swine near the mountains and beg Jesus to cast them into the swine instead of sending them out of the country. And after Jesus gives them the go ahead, they possess the swine and jump straight into the sea and drowned. And now the people that fed the swine fled and told the nearby city and the whole country. And the people went to see Jesus, and seeing that the previously mad man was now sitting, clothed, and perfectly sane, they were afraid and begged Jesus to leave the country, which is pretty understandable since he did cause them to lose like 2,000 swine. And so he does. But before Jesus leaves, the previously possessed man begs Jesus to let him go with him. But Jesus rejects him and tells him to tell others the great things that the Lord has done for him and how he had compassion for him. And so the man did as Jesus told him, and the people marvel. And so from this miracle, there are two key points I want to point out that I think are pretty motivating and encouraging. And the first is that Jesus had power over demons. Why is this encouraging? I mean, this was certainly not very encouraging for the people of Gadarenes who chased him out of the city because of it. Not only because he caused them to lose so much pigs, but also because they probably thought he was some weird sorcerer. We also know that in another verse, Matthew 12, verse 24, the Pharisee said that Jesus casts out demons by Beelzebub, the ruler of demons. Furthermore, demons don't even manifest themselves physically in today's world. So, who cares if Jesus has power over them? I mean, it's not going to do anything now, right? So, why do I say that this is motivating? Well, I'm going to use Matthew chapter 12, verse 24 again to actually support my point. And if we read just the next few verses after that, we see that Jesus counters the Pharisees, saying that every house, every kingdom, every city that is divided against itself will be brought to destruction. What does this mean? This means that Jesus can't be casting out demons in Beelzebub's name. That just wouldn't make sense. So if he wasn't casting out demons in Beelzebub's name, then there leaves only one choice, and that is he was casting out demons by the authority of someone who had power over demons. But on the opposite side, and that is none other than God. And now that we have linked the two, we can therefore come to the conclusion that Jesus acted with the authority of God, which only further proves that Jesus is, in fact, the Son of God and is God. And so through this miracle, we can have further assurance that Jesus is the Christ, which is really the intended purpose for all his miracles, right? To prove that he was, in fact, the Christ. And so the next point I want to point out is that everyone has a mission. a purpose. And we can see that towards the end of the passage. Right? The man who was possessed wanted to follow Jesus. He wanted to become like his disciples, but Jesus refused him. And this wasn't because he wasn't worthy, right? Jesus has shown a very different response to those that he has deemed unworthy, such as the rich young ruler and the two people in Matthew 8, verses 18 to 22. But Jesus had another mission for the man, and that was he was to spread the word of his recovery to the people, to proclaim what the Lord has done for him. And I think this is a very good reminder that every one of us has our own talents. In 1 Corinthians 12, Paul talks about how every member of the church is important and that everyone has their own gifts. And although he was referring to spiritual gifts, such as healing and working miracles, specifically in that chapter, which no longer exists today, the concept still remains that everyone in the church has a part to play. And I'm sure Jesus knew that really well. He knew that the man would serve a greater purpose, sharing God's goodness in his country. And I mean, it happened. It was evident by how the people marveled. And it makes sense, right? I'm sure almost everyone, if not all the people there, knew about the former madman, the man who could literally break chains and cried out in the mountains and tombs, like some kind of a horror Halloween kind of story. And to see him being restored as a normal person, they would have surely been amazed. And it would have had so much more impact because they knew the person that he was before, this scary person, rather than if he had followed Jesus and went to somewhere where people would just see him as his current state, right? The sane man that he was. And so through this, I hope you can see and be encouraged by the fact that we all have our talents. And with our God-given talents, we should strive to serve him to the best of our ability. Maybe someone can lead songs very well. Someone is very good at talking to people and striking up conversations about God. Someone is very good at planning and organizing fellowship activities for the church. Whatever it is, don't compare yourself to other members. As long as you try your best, your efforts and talents will be recognized. Not just by the church, but more importantly, by God. This, however, also doesn't mean that we completely neglect the areas of service we are bad at. Things like evangelism are still a requirement. But if we put our best into it, the results don't really matter. God sees our hearts. God knows that we will produce varying results, but that doesn't mean he loves us differently. He sent his son to die for all of us, and that is the single greatest act of love that we all share equally and eternally. And with that, I end my sharing on the miracle with regards to the Gadarene Demoniac. I hope you have found this miracle encouraging and motivating, and thank you for tuning into Motivating Monday. Holy and holy.